The numbers, they're a problem. They've always been a problem. When a film costs $10 million, it becomes profitable rather quickly. Films require talent at all levels from the very beginning, and films need to resonate with the largest possible audience. But the film's success always revolves around the numbers. Now, when you look at the breakdown of the box office, at least today, don't be too distracted by the excuses and the ephemera that get thrown in trying to explain a particular film's poor performance. These are the things that can always be looked at later. You don't have to focus on them initially. Always account for the certain things first. Call them the facts if you prefer. When it comes to the current box office performance, I thought it might be fun to take a look at some of the odd numbers for all the recently released films. With the threat of some lawsuits in Disney's future, it's gonna throw a bigger monkey wrench in things than probably anybody was considering. I also think it'll be a little enlightening. So here we go.
Ladies and gentlemen, hiss and foes, welcome to the Culture Casino.
We can easily harken back to the year 2020, when the industry experts said 2019 was a banner year, in particular for Disney, and would not be repeated or matched in a very, very long while. Remember this little nugget from back in 2019 from CNBC and other outlets showing Disney controlled 40% or more, probably a little more, of the gross box office for the entire year. At that point, it was only 9 months in. 10 months in. They still had 2 months to go, basically, and they had a giant film that was coming out. So 2020 was not going to perform at the same rate. It was going to be a down year. We were even warned that it was going to be a down year. This warning came before the pending global crisis that we were embroiled in shortly thereafter. And the big franchises at that time, all of them seemed to have come to a close. They wrapped up, so to speak, and they were trying to reload for the next phase. Projections and tracking for the films were already declining, or anything that was going to be coming out, and in other words, the numbers were already looking pretty bad. 2020 opened with a declining interest, much because of the ending of the Disney Star Wars films. But that sentiment moved into the release schedule of that January 2020. That January featured 1917, Underwater, Bad Boys for Life, Dolittle, and The Gentleman. They were the most notable films at the time, with wildly different performance. In fact, we're comparing them here. They also showed remarkable consistency, with the exception of 1917, because it had a very strange release schedule, opening in a very limited capacity on 11 screens in 2019, probably to try to get some award consideration. But the films fell off on their second major weekend by nearly half, and that is something to pay attention to because it's been a trend, or had been a trend, for a while. And that trend kept on sliding downward. Let's take a look into February. February, we had the multiply named Birds of Prey film. Pick a name before you go to market. Warner? Anyway. Also, there was Sonic the Hedgehog, Call of the Wild, and The Invisible Man. Once again, the films all fall a bit short of 50% or near 50% fall off in the second weekend. Actually, Sonic fell off a little bit more than 50% after a very unexpected strong opening in which it just trounced Birds of Prey. I mean, pummeled it almost the entire time that they were competing. So looking for patterns and numbers makes it easier to understand what's happening, or what is likely to happen, of course. And that gives us projections and tracking which utilize this type of pattern recognition to get a feel for the performance of a film and what a marketing push might help with. Because again, marketing decisions are made with numbers. Numbers are even crunched when it comes to targeting a release date, or at least they used to be. Some of that got fouled up recently for obvious reasons. But there's a ton of pencil pushing in the movie business. It's ridiculous. Plus, if you have a feel for numbers, you can make some pretty decent projections, or predictions, I should say. Now let's look at Black Widow, since it's a recent blockbuster. This film was headed downwards going into 2020. At least that's what the projections and the tracking were setting it up for. It got a major boost from the Super Bowl promotion that it was benefiting from. And then, of course, it started to slide again. Bam. We got hit with the complete halt of theatrical releases due to a global crisis, which certainly didn't help. Black Widow stays in the can, obviously, for more than a year, which takes it outside of the time it should have been released by an additional year. But the numbers already showed a downward trend. A year later, Black Widow releases with lowered expectations, as with every other film that was released or moved to 2021. It managed to even finish lower than the lowered expectations with a domestic box office of around $80 million. Of course, it's an interesting opening, but Disney then did the uncharacteristic thing and announced the $60 million that it earned from the Disney Plus Premier Access. Kind of weird. They then added another $78 million in international box office into that total, and this created a new phrase that I had not heard in a trade paper before: total domestic spend. With this new phrase and a new approach to movie math, let's put it that way, we end up with $215 million in opening for Black Widow. And that's all well and fine, but we need to compare apples to apples, of course. So here's what we'll focus on. We'll focus on the domestic box office only. So 80 million in the first weekend. The second weekend was 25 million. That's a 68% tumble from weekend to weekend. That's far deeper than our expected 50%, right? Since there are two other juggernauts released this summer, which included F9 and GVK, even though technically Godzilla vs. Kong wasn't quite in the summer, but still kind of kicked off the new renewed interest in theatrical moviegoing. Let's look at their numbers too. Of course, looking at these numbers, things seem to have improved substantially since March, but the fall off seems to be steeper, even with Godzilla, which fell 57% weekend to weekend. Fast 9 fell off by 67%. Well, that's no good. We didn't establish a pattern showing that a film's simultaneous release on streaming actually affects this kind of a fall off. Godzilla fell off 57%, but it was available for free on HBO Max. Fast 9 fell off 67% even though it wasn't available to stream. Black Widow falls off 68% with a very expensive Premier Access streaming. None of these numbers so far show that a film's legs are actually affected by the availability of a day and date streaming, at least not domestically. But our sample size isn't large enough yet to actually show the converse either, of course. What we do know is that none of these films had a great second week or great second week legs. A film's legs, of course, can be affected by a large number of odd things, but most frequently it's affected by word of mouth, because that's very exciting, telling your friends and family about a great film. And of course, if it's a great film, chances are you had repeat viewing. Since those are the two primary factors, those are the ones that we'll focus on here. we are, of course, adding another piece into this somewhat complicated puzzle, or model, if you prefer to call it that. And that is this weekend's release, or this last weekend's release, of Jungle Cruise, which chugged past $34 million plus domestically at the box office. Now, combining this number with the magically convenient Disney Plus Premier Access earnings of $30 million. That's right, they told us it earned $30 million. Only the second time they've done that, and they won't do it on the second week. They didn't during Black Widow. And of course, they earned $27 million plus in international release, at least at the time of this video's recording, the numbers I can confirm. Jungle Cruise reportedly opened over 90 plus million. Probably closer to 92 would be my guess, but final numbers will come in later than this video's actual taping and actually editing and actually releasing. So kind of stuck with what we got now. And that, again, puts us where we are with the new movie math at 92 million worldwide, give or take a little. If the new numbers from our other 3 recent films hold true, Jungle Cruise could fall to 11.2 million on the very lowest side, or 14.2 on the optimistic and highest side, right? That's a $3 million difference, and a difference of 10 percentage points. But it will also help us flesh out if there's any type of an emerging pattern, which would be helpful for all of us, really. If I were the studios, I'd be very concerned. In fact, there are some analysts that truly are. And taking this from the Deadline article that we read here, however, there are those in the industry this morning who are not impressed with Jungle Cruise's numbers. Again, blame the global crisis and dynamic windowing. A 91.8 million combined global theatrical and POV start are not the ingredients to profit off of a tentpole with excellent audience exits, which actually cost an estimated $362 million in negative cost, distribution, and marketing expenses. Well, there's the true cost of a film there, guys. But then again, what is truly making money right now in the current global marketplace? At the end of the day, a simultaneous theatrical and POVD window brings the streaming revenue forward in time. There's too much evidence that the model diminishes the aggregate streaming revenue as well as cuts into the movie's theatrical gross, says one film finance insider this morning. I could not agree more with actually what's being said here in this article and with that particular finance insider. And I think people should be listening to the IMAX CEO as well, who stated in regards to Disney and Black Widow, they used to sell the same property 5 times, and now they're selling it once. They might bring some revenue forward, but there's no proof pointing that it's a better model. He added that a lot of the same people, they will come to that same conclusion. It's hard to quantify it, but some statistics I find interesting is that F9, which is a more traditional distribution model, will gross about $700 million worldwide at the end of its run. And Black Widow will gross half of that, the IMAX boss said. Black Widow was a great movie, so when I think about it, there was no doubt a lot of money was left on the table. Maybe not, but at least some people other than us are thinking deeply about the film industry as a whole. With that being said, what do you think? Do you think we are going to see a steep fall off in the second week performance of films for the foreseeable future? I mean, the pattern is there. Is it going to be as steep as it's been before? Is it going to be steeper? Do you think that streaming day and date is driving that to happen? Do you think studios will actually retreat back to the safety of a traditional theatrical exhibition model? Please fill in your own thoughts below, comments, any questions, and I'll be happy to get back to them as quickly as I possibly can, because I do my best to respond. Sometimes it's not as fast as I'd like to do, but please, your contributions are helpful, as well as you sharing out this particular video, because again, I am trying to make a big push big push to get to 10K here in the next, I don't know, 6 months. I'd like to get to 5K by the end of the year. So anything that you can do to help out, like, share, comment, those things work. And in closing, I'll just say what I always say, which is support other independent creators. They truly deserve it. They don't get the recognition or support that they need from the platform that they actually helped create. And that's a real shame, actually, favoring the large corps over the smaller guys. And because we're at the end of the video, I'll end it like I always do. Be sure to take care of yourself. Take care of others. Wash your hands, of course, because it's good hygiene. It truly is. And until next time, bye.
Thanks for visiting today. Be sure you're subscribed and hit that for alerts.
Yay!
Of course, like and share all of the videos that you can, as it helps with the algorithm. Have a great day.